Mm, oh, okay. Yeah, so I can show you. So I have my main game. If you see, there's like three little kind of life cycle events. So there's like game start, game update, game shutdown. My main.c file just calls those. I have one giant global state called app. App has some metadata on it, debug information, window information, asset registry, which is like all of the assets in my game. For now, it's just models, but eventually it'll be like textures and sounds. Then I have the camera, which wraps the Raylib camera, but adds some more metadata like panning information right now. The level registry, which is all of the levels in the game. And then the level state, which is the current level in the game, as well as some metadata about that level. So that's like all of the global state in the entire game. And then while the game is running, they just have these like systems that loop over different things. I pass in explicitly what everything needs. There's not really much. I mean, even though there's like global state, like I'm passing in everything these systems actually need. So there's not very much actual global state outside of this. So it should be pretty straightforward as far as like what everything needs and what it uses. Render system's pretty busy, but I can show you like if I go to the camera system, it takes in the camera, the current level state, and like the debug state. So systems are basically just like loop over entities and process them. Most of the time they update them. But like in the case of the render system, it's not really updating anything. It's just like reading the state and drawing it to the screen. But then I have these queries, which queries basically they're just helpers for let's see how I can say this. Like they just loop over all the entities in the level, the current level, and then give you the result. So there's like two kinds of queries. There's like a single, like a find, and like a find all query and query all. And that'll give you the result of that query. And then you can loop over those specific things and do things with them. So for example, in this case, I'm looping over tiles, which actually I'm not using this anymore. So I think I can, I don't think I'm using that anymore. So I can get rid of that. I think that'll still work. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I was using that, but might as well clean it up. These are also static, so they don't need to be created every single time. They'll persist, even though I am querying every single time. Maybe in the future that would be like an optimization point, is to not query all the time. But for now, I figured do everything every frame, and then I'll optimize if I need to. My frame time is still pretty small, so it's not a big deal. An entity is just like a mega struct also. So the entity just contains all of these components which it can have. And these components are kind of assumed to be, whether or not they're on, there's like a corresponding component type, which is just it's a bit mask. So I've got potentially 64 of them, even though I'm not using that quite yet. If I go over that, I'm gonna have to tweak it a little bit, but these are all the component flags that a component can have. So it can be active, it can be a part of the environment, transform, model, color, animation, selectable, rotatable, movable, tile, whether it's a laser emitter, a laser collider, a laser reflector, and so on. And so I can turn these components on and off just with these component flags. Anything that ends in flag doesn't necessarily have an associated piece of data with it. If it doesn't end in flag, then it should have a very, similarly named. So like component movable corresponds to the movable data. You can see here, what's in one of these, like laser emitter has some information, offset, whether it's firing, and what its laser entity ID is. So most of the time just using like a subset of these things, and then I have just a bunch of helpers for like turning those on and off. Honestly, these are probably unnecessary. It's just nice to like find, but like any of these set things, just make sure to set the component flag in addition to setting the component value. Yeah. And then my levels are defined with a level registry, and I just made a bunch of macros for myself to be able to easily define levels.